Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I am Johnny Hamburger, your host with the most, your freak of geek, your mental curator for this evening in your divine intervention, baptizing you into the Church of Geek. I've got kind of a good show. What was that noise? Kind of a good show for you tonight. And if you're looking at the YouTube, you'll see that I'm wearing an Astros hat, but I'm sipping out of a Boston coffee mug. Oh, coffee that is delectable, by the way. I try not to mention specific dates or things that correlate to specific times on my show. But right now, the Astros are playing the Red Sox in the postseason. In American League Division Series, best of 5. And this is a day. If you know me, you know that I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan. My parents are from Boston. My dad especially is, speaking of being raised in churches, raised in the Church of Red Sox Nation. So when the Astros switched to the American League in 2013, I naively thought, well, the Astros are terrible, so luckily I'll never have to see them face the Red Sox in the postseason in my lifetime. Eye roll. 2017, Astros are fan-freaking-tastic, and they now face the Boston Red Sox here in the postseason, and they just won today. So the Astros are up 1-0. They won 8-2. And it's, you know, I dreaded this situation, although I never thought it would happen. And my heart is torn now. And this is why I was dreading the situation, because I'm also an Astros fan. I've lived in Houston since 1989. Of course, I'm an Astros fan. And the Astros this year deserve a World Series. They deserve it. Every single member of the team has been productive and has, I was going to say, done well. They've done great. They were, and are they the best team in baseball? I think the Indians might have a better scoring win percentage, but I don't know. They're great, and the Astros absolutely deserve to win the World Series this year. Go to the World Series. We've gone to the World Series in 2005 exclusively because of Andy Pettitte and Roger Clemens. We had 2 great pitchers, and that's the only reason we went in 2005. I love Jeff Bagwell. I love Biggio. Berkman was on the team. The Killer Bees. It was a great. It was still the pitching. The pitching is why we went and why we got swept, which we all knew would happen. Well, I had an inkling. So the Astros are not a World Series baseball team yet. This is going to end badly. But at least they got there in 2005. 2017 Astros are spectacular. They are a very good baseball team, and they absolutely deserve to win. So my heart has been torn. I don't want the Red Sox to lose, but I also don't want the Astros to lose. And my coworker, my buddy here at work, Corey Olson, who you can hear on KTRH on the afternoons. He's the afternoon anchor until 10 p.m. at night. He pointed it out to me this way. He said, well, instead of thinking one of your teams is going to lose, think of it this way. One of your teams is going to win. Oh, and you know what? That's looking at it mug half full. Again, my coffee making skills are tremendous. So that's where we're at right now. Astros and Red Sox facing each other in the postseason. That is not exactly how I plan to open up the first 5 minutes of Geek Therapy Radio. And if you'll forgive me, I'm going to take off this Astros hat right now, just for now. I'm going to leave it kind of facing the camera. Hopefully you can still see it sitting on the radio console there. I wanted to start out Geek Therapy Radio this week talking about how we as the general public, at least in the United States, and let's be real, most of the world, we have lost our childlike wonder. And we have, better yet, we've lost our childlike curiosity into learning about our world. And that's a tragedy. I read a statistic somewhere that 17% of Americans actively search out science news. 17% of Americans search out science news. And that's kind of sad to me, because that is, my brain, I guess, is wired differently. I'm so curious. I'm looking for science news all the time, every single day. All of my favorite websites are science websites or tech websites or something to do with learning about our world. And so that's kind of sad. And you think to yourself, how can we change that in society? How can we go back and fundamentally change the way we learn in school? Fundamentally change education so that it's not so wrapped up in and so focused on making a good grade, but rather judging a student's ability to learn and be curious. When we graduate high school or graduate college, we think, you throw your hat in the air, hooray, I don't have to learn anymore. No more studying, which is sad. So now we have mostly a population of scientifically illiterate adults. And this is not at all a religious discussion or bringing religion into it at all. You can be both scientific and curious about your universe and have your faith too. That is absolutely, those two things go actually hand in hand. And I would argue that it creates more of a complete life if you have a strong spiritual side as well as a strong scientific side. At what point as adults have we stopped looking up into the stars and wondering? And even sadder, I think about kids who grow up in houses where their parents don't encourage that kind of curiosity. For instance, think about a kid holding an egg. A kid is holding an egg for the first time. Oh, this egg is hard, so it must be unbreakable, or it must be very tough. Kid drops the egg and it shatters into a big mess on the floor. And the parent is scolding the kid. The kid is in trouble because he's made a mess. Instead, how much does that egg cost? 10 cents? Less than 10 cents? How valuable is that egg to teaching your kid to be curious about our world? Explaining to the kid why the shell is hard, but it's breakable, but it's brittle, it's fragile. The kid knows a rock is hard and the egg feels hard. So what is the difference between the rock and the egg? Why is our first reaction to discipline the child when he breaks an egg instead of teaching him why the egg feels hard but is brittle? And it just snowballs from there, the lessons that can come from that one little several cents egg. You know, this egg could have had a chicken inside of it. What? Blow the kid's mind. Just spend the day blowing the kid's mind over an egg instead of the kid dropping the egg and scolding him. The kid is curious. We scold that curiosity. What accent is that? Curiosity out of children. And in school, at least in this country, we focus so much on just making the grade. If you don't get a good grade on this test, it means you're stupid. Let me tell you something. I'll use a little bit of an anecdote. I went to school, a private school, with a girl who consistently got perfect grades on her test, would get hundreds and every point of extra credit. I remember one time she didn't get 1 point of extra credit and she cried. She crumbled in on herself and cried. So I would take, for me an example, I would take a history test, and I was decent in history, but I would take a history test and score a C, 75. I might even get lower than that, or I might get an A on it, might get a B on it. My grades were all over the place, usually probably about C average, let's be honest. The difference is this girl who spent so much time memorizing the material for the test did not put any of it into her knowledge banks, into her repertoire to pull out of her brain at any moment in life. So whereas I scored a 75% on the test, that means that I had a good grasp of 75% of that material. I had put 75% of that material into my heart, basically, not just on the top of my head, into the whole of who I am. So this person who scored perfectly on all of her tests, you'd ask her about the test a week later, she wouldn't know jack squat about it. When did we sign the Declaration of Independence? 1823? No, 1776. Why can't you put that in? Why have you not memorized? That's a basic date that we all should know. But she was so worried about memorizing the test, memorizing to the test, that she didn't put much of the knowledge into her heart. So that's the end of that rant. I'll come back with more Geek Therapy Radio after these short messages if you're listening on the radio. Let me hit the social media. I gotta do it. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube to see my beautiful smiling face. Sorry if this first segment was a little bit rambly, but it's something that's kind of close to my heart, and I'm probably going to continue it into the next segment. A little bit. I promise we'll get onto specific tech topics, geek topics, to stimulate our geeky minds. But I just wanted to, that's something that's been on my mind this week, so I just wanted to get it out. Join me for more Geek Therapy Radio in a few minutes. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Stick around, it's going to be fun. See you in a sec.